Financial Matters.
22 minutes after 8. You see, I told you somebody's going to say I've got an issue with poor. No, it's not poor people. Poverty. Please, let's not fight. Not this evening. Let me introduce my guest. Thapelo Tsiu is Senior Manager for Financial Education at Nedbank. But Thapelo, thank you so much, my brother, for coming through. I appreciate it. You got big shoes to fill.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Dr. Frank Magwegwe is off to Kenya, I'm told. But he would never have sent you to fill his space if he didn't think that you were able. So I know already that you are going to be able to help us out. We're talking this evening about side hustles. What are we talking about?
Oh, so first of all, thank you so much, Aubrey, for inviting me to your show. It's an honor, and also to Doctor for this opportunity. I much appreciate it. So when we talk about the side hustle, really, it's simply a means of earning or making money alongside your day job. And I think we have really, as a country, gone through quite a bit, especially after COVID, with some other people losing their jobs and those who eventually then got jobs. You find that it's maybe low-paying jobs. And those who are still fortunate to have jobs at the moment, you find that now they also are faced with a challenge of not meeting some of their living expenses. And now then it leads to, do I go and apply for a loan? How do I, and then it brings all of those other financial stresses. So this is quite a very important topic, and especially us at Nedbank, we use our financial expertise to do good for our individuals, communities, businesses, and societies at large. And within the space where I operate, we run financial literacy programs. And so you can imagine we talk about savings, we talk about the importance of budgeting.
Sure.
And then we realize that, some of our audiences can hear us, but now how do we really help them to grow their wealth, as you've mentioned earlier? And this then brought about us including in our programs this topic of side hustles. And I must say, across the country, we've been running it now from last year. It has really gained momentum just to plant a seed about the importance of having a side hustle.
So a lot of people probably have a side hustle of one form or the other. We're talking now about Patco stories.
Oh, yes. I was listening to them as well.
Now, I knew in the Patco bus that I used to go on in the mornings when I went to school.
Yes.
There was a lady who was a Mamruti.
Okay.
Yeah, she was an intercessor. Prophet. She prayed for people in the bus.
Yes.
In fact, she would wear her little cape just before she started to pray. When she was going, I think she was a domestic worker, wherever she was going to work. But that was a day job.
Yes.
And then, of course, she would pray for people and so forth in the bus, and there'd be a service in the bus. Well, as it would turn out, her little side hustle in the bus was selling the lost draw.
Okay.
In the bus.
Okay.
Mamruti.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make here is that sometimes the side hustle finds you.
Oh, yes. Incidentally.
You don't find the side hustle. So she used to sell loose cigarettes, while she was praying.
Yeah.
You'd drop your 2 rand and take your loose draw. And people in the bus are not judgmental.
Yeah,
no, there's no such.
Yes.
There's no such. You drop your 2 rand there, you pick up your Rothmans, you walk out.
Well, just, yes.
Yeah, and you walk out. I don't even know whether Chris, you know what Rothmans is? Oh, okay, Rothmans. Anyway, so that is, I think, a very interesting case of a side hustle.
That would actually be, and actually it answers a very, very important piece about how do I then go about doing this?
Yes.
I now really realize I need an additional stream of income. How do I really go about doing this? And really you've mentioned a very important part there to say, perhaps it starts with knowing what you enjoy doing, right? So, Mema Moruti in the bus, she will more be able to do that tomorrow, the day after, and the day after, and accidentally it's sort of she gets a market for what she's doing, right? So I think first and foremost is to find out what is it that you enjoy doing. And I must say, Dr. Frank Magwegwe, who also happens to be my boss at work, he always says to us, a very awesome boss. Yeah. He always says to us, look, you must be very careful to ensure that you do something that does not take a lot of energy out of you.
Yes.
Something that really makes you thrive as an individual. Yes. So I think that would be the first thing. Then the next thing is
which would have been true for Mom Ruti's side hustle, because she didn't really have to sell them.
Yes.
She just put them there on her chair.
Yes.
Because everybody knew that was Mam Ruti's chair. Nobody sat on Mam Ruti's chair.
Already reserved.
No. You can't sit on Mam Ruti's chair. And then she just put she'd either sell Mills, Rothmans, Stavison. And it was always there on the chair. Yes. And then she'd stand up and say, Magwe Noktule Bandlin. Then the sermon would start. So nobody she wasn't actively selling.
Yes.
Because, and people were very honest. They just dropped the 2 rand in there, in the box, and then take their cigarettes. She wasn't selling, but the Vangeli was moving.
It was moving.
Yeah,
absolutely.
no. She was preaching very strong there.
Absolutely.
So you're right to say that it mustn't be something that disturbs other things.
Yeah.
It must be something that perhaps even supports and augments what you love to do, which was preaching for Mam Ruti and praying for people. But she understood that people needed a smoke.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think get off the bus.
Yes, and it also talks to, especially to Mam Ruti's space, it talks about her having built her own brand, and people will then, sort of perform that transaction based on that it's for Mam Ruti, So that kind of your brand as well sort of helps you in terms of, because now it's you.
Yeah.
People are buying from you, and now you're living what you're doing, and then people actually buy you, really, yes.
Look, there was a guy in the bus by the name of Brastiv. Grootman, he used to like wearing Brentwood. You know those? Brentwood.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And he would wear Flossheim shoes. Grootman, and he always had this beret. I remember Brastiv very well. He had this beret, and he was always cleanly shaven, but his beret never covered his head. It just sort of, I don't know how it stayed. It just sat on his head. It doesn't matter what the man was doing. The beret, whether the bus was almost full, the beret would stay.
It'd stay,
I think Brastiv had a thing for Mam Ruti.
Oh, okay.
I think so. But he never wanted to declare it. Mam Ruti was a beautiful woman.
Oh, okay.
No, we must be honest. Mam Ruti was a beautiful thing. But Brastiv didn't like church things,
Okay.
And then he was a drinker. So he didn't like this feeling, but he was very religious at buying Mam Ruti cigarettes.
Okay.
And he always had a little glint in his eye that suggested to me that there was more to it than just the buying of cigarettes. So what I'm saying, I suppose, with what you are saying, is that sometimes the fact that you are somebody that is loved or liked in a community could assist your side hustle.
Absolutely. Because then also that's also something that you identify with in the long run.
Yeah.
And, especially something very tricky in business, trust is very important.
Yes.
Loyalty is very important.
Yes.
So if you understand those kinds of...
Even romantic...
Yes, I'm thinking as though the gentleman was marking his territory there.
Brastiv.
But yes, Brastiv.
Absolutely. He had a very interesting beret. Never moved the thing. I don't know how he kept it stuck on his head, but it was always there.
Yes.
All right, so we're talking side hustle, folks. 011-883-0702. If you're in Cape Town, the number is 021-446-0567. My guest is Thapelo Tsiu. He's Senior Manager for Financial Education at Nedbank. And we're just talking about what you need to be thinking about if you want to have a side hustle. In other words, a way by which you augment your income. You add on to your income without necessarily disturbing your mainstream day job, as it were. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've got a side hustle. What insights could you give to us in that space? We'd love to hear from you. But clearly, it's sounding like it's got to be something that's not going to disturb your other stuff. Yeah? It's not going to disturb your day job. It's going to be the kind of thing that you maybe even like doing. It might even be a passion, something that starts out as a hobby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. And you've very important. Something can be a hobby, but you may find that there may not be a market for it. So that's another very important part about if you want to start a side hustle. It's what problem are you also trying to solve? Yes, you enjoy doing what you're doing, but what actually is the problem you're solving? And is this problem something that people will be willing to pay you for? Yeah. So very, very important. So absolutely, there's a lot to be done in this world, a lot of work, a lot of some of the things that you are good at, you may be able to find that you thrive in them, but perhaps maybe it ends up being a foundation where it's a not-for-profit, or then it ends up being a for-profit kind of entity that you then see that you build your market on, you grow your market share. But so very, very important to be cognizant that, and also where is my market? Where can I find these people that will be willing to pay for my services?
Give me a call, 011-883-0702 or 021-446-0567. My guest is Thapelo Tsiu, Senior Manager for Financial Education at Nedbank. We're talking side hustles. What is your side hustle? Yeah. How did it start? Did it start out as a hobby? Is it something that is proving to perhaps be of such significance in its contribution to your income that you are perhaps even thinking about leaving your mainstream day job? Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. 011-883-0702. Is that the goal? Is that the goal for a side hustle to end up being, the replacer of your day job?
Yeah, that would be actually, I think it would be a plus for you, because then if your side hustle becomes more profitable to such an extent that it, what you're getting, the proceeds that you get out of it, that you can be able then to now focus on it fully, that would be much advantageous for you. But also on the other hand, and you touched on a very important point earlier on to say, very important to ensure that it doesn't interfere with your day job, for instance. Remember, you're still working, you're still getting paid, so your employer expects of you to deliver during the time in which you are supposed to deliver. So very important to ensure it doesn't interfere, and not it interfering really means that things like don't use company resources, right? And if ever your company then maybe allows for the usage of printers, maybe you very important to read the fine prints of what your company expects of you and what you're not allowed to do. So I would say steer clear from ensuring that from finding yourself running your side hustle, that it affects your day job. Yes, absolutely.
How big do side hustles get? I mean, we can start off by looking at Mema Muruti's cigarette size side hustle in the bus, right?
Yes.
But I imagine that they can get big. I mean, if somebody is really responding to a very big need in his community, I imagine that they can get pretty serious.
Oh, no, absolutely. But it also depends on the jockey as well, the one who's running it.
Right.
Sometimes a side hustle...
Is that the right term, jockey? The person running a side hustle?
The side hustle, the owner of the side hustle.
The side hustle CEO.
Yeah, the side hustler. Yeah. So maybe we can call them that. So over time, it depends on your aspirations or the goals of your business, of your side hustle. Do you want it to grow, or do you simply want to survive? And can you seize opportunities as they come to expand? So that really entirely depends on you. But to your point, yes, there has been businesses that started very, very small, and because of the market that they are serving and also being in the right location, the business starts to grow, and then it becomes a very big concern that now requires the side hustler to now focus solely on it, and leading the person to maybe, do I now, let my employer that, I've served my time, can I now focus on my side hustle? So there has definitely been.
I grew up Kokasi in Mamelodi.
Yes.
And there were always many different side hustles. There was always Memang Mang who was making scones.
Yes.
People who had funerals, weddings, whatever, would make orders. Even though she worked at Samka, we used to call it Sigma back in the days.
Okay.
She'd be making scones and so forth. On the other side, there'd be another auntie who was perhaps making curtains for people.
Yes.
Even though she was working at I don't know, whatever major companies that you had in that area, right?
Yes.
Something happened along the way that people stopped getting involved in side hustles. I remember right next door to my house, there was a booming business of me who was selling the keep popcorn and what we used to call the ice block.
Oh,
especially
yes.
in the heat of the sun.
Yes. Oh,
and what
I used to enjoy
yeah,
those.
remember?
Yeah.
I think in other parts of, they call them isqeta.
Okay.
Isqeta goma.
Yeah, we used to call them the ice blocks.
Yeah, we used to call them the ice blocks too.
Eh.
I'm interested to find out where you're from.
Oh, yeah. So I have my own Patco story. I was waiting for you to ask.
Yeah.
So I was born in the Free State,
Okay.
in Qwaqwa, in
Right.
Tedichaba.
Yeah.
So when I yes. But so there was other buses there, but there was no Patco. But when I moved to Johannesburg, Patco bus was everywhere.
Yes.
And in every street.
Yes.
So how I identify with Patco buses is in traffic in the morning. So when you speak about Mema Muruti, other days you'd see actually people singing in the bus, and it reminded me because there was a time where I used to take a train to work.
Yeah.
When I was still working in Paarl in the Western Cape, and I could actually remember those days where people used to sing. So I would see people singing in the bus, and it actually take me there.
Bro, it was a time. It was a time. So I'm interested, perhaps, on your take as to what happened.
Yes.
There was a time when people just stopped.
Yes.
Not everybody, but the side hustle was part of life.
Yeah.
I remember I used to sell milk on the train. I used to sell some vegetables here and there to help with the money to go to school and back, that kind of thing. So I'm at some point people stopped doing the side hustle. I'm not sure what happened. I'd love to take your insights as far as that is concerned, because the side hustle was part of life.
It was, absolutely.
It was what people did.
Yes.
Suddenly it stopped. Somewhere it stopped. Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. But remember, it doesn't have to be just a township side hustle. I mean, I'm very much aware that I'm a township boy, so my mind will always gravitate towards that kind of side hustle. But maybe you are a programmer. Maybe you're a programmer. Maybe you've got a side hustle as a oh, that thing, I nearly forgot. Our guest from yesterday wants to get in touch with a young man who has a brand that is named after the Volkswagen in Soweto. Oh, I just forgot. Oh, just remember that, please, if we can find that young man. Anyway, so I'd love to hear from you as to what happened in our communities that the side hustle started to decline. Is it because we started to look down upon it? I think there was a time when people started to say, "Hi, I have a job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm decently employed."
Yeah.
And I think that maybe was the reason why we saw the demise of the side hustle.
Yes.
I know people that used to help people just build a little shack, and they've started construction companies. Yeah, so maybe a side hustle can grow and become something very big.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that we can bring that culture back, where people begin to scratch that entrepreneurial itch.
Yeah.
Give us a call. I'd love to hear from you. 011-883. Why do you think it stopped?
I'm thinking that, because personal circumstances change,
Yeah.
right? And also maybe the reason you started a side hustle, you continued for a while and you realized, it's taking a lot of my time. Or you continued for a while and then you realized, I think I'm not getting much out of this business than I thought, or it costs me more, or the cost of producing whatever you are selling have risen. So there may be many factors, and also personal circumstances could be where you relocate to places where you cannot find the market where you used to find. So there could be many different markets, but I'm also interested to hear also.
Well, we've got quite a few calls that have come through to respond to the side hustle. I'd love to hear your Patco story, by the way. If you've got a Patco story, I would love to hear it. But lots of side hustles in the transport area. Yeah? If you go to any station at any time, besides the people who work there on a daily basis selling fruits or whatever conveniences, from shoelaces to hair products to soap to combs, there's always somebody there that is coming from work but is selling something too. Or it used to happen. I don't know if it still happens now. Give me a call. I'd love to hear your thoughts on 011-883-0702. Some calls coming through. Can I go straight to the lines, Chris? Let's speak to Richard in Randburg. Good evening to you, Richard.
Hi there, Orbs.
Yeah, man. What's on your mind, Richard?
Okay, so without going into too much detail, I'm a whistleblower, got wiped out as whistleblowers do.
Yeah.
And had to reinvent myself.
Yeah.
And being a professional person and etc. So I introspected, and in the reinvention process, I realized that there's a lot of misdirection in the way that we taught to look for jobs and to work and whatever. So I'm going to cut to the chase here, and I'm going to give like bullet points. You don't sell hours because you've only got a limited number of hours in the day. You sell products. Products can be sold when you're sleeping. They can be sold in multiple locations.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the thing, is you must try and sell products.
Yeah.
You might cook products and then sell in multiple locations. Your limit, of course, is how much time and how much capacity you have to cook.
Yeah.
And remember, you're buying stock, and then the stock can go off or not get sold. So that's another thing with a lot of side hustles, is that people have a location and they sell at a location, and on a particular day, it depends on who walks past, whether they want that product or that service, and if the weather changes or there's a public holiday, long weekend, something changes. Suddenly you've got no customers.
Yeah.
And you're standing there with stock, or you're standing there in the rain, or whatever the case is.
Or listeriosis hits, eh? Remember the or
COVID or something like that.
Yeah.
So, or load shedding. Suddenly you don't have refrigeration, or you don't have electricity for a clipper, or whatever you've got.
Yeah.
So you've got to factor those things in. You've got to understand that these are risk factors that are going to cause a seasonality and a variability in your earning potential. So you must know what just by the way, I'm an accountant. So you must know your overhead cost structure, and you must know what's going on there. I had a guy working for me at one stage. He fell off the horse, so to speak, and I took him in and tried to help him, and I wasn't really quite ready to put somebody into the small business.
Yeah, yeah.
And he'd come back and say, I sold 1,000 rand today. Well, what he didn't factor in is the cost of the product was 500 rand. His income was included in that. The food that he was buying for the day was included in that. The petrol, the ice, or the airtime, or and so when you got to the end of all that, I had no profit as a business. So I was trying to work on the business, not in the business. I wanted him to work in the business, and I was getting no profit. And all I was doing really is changing stock to cash.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to go and drive and spend money getting the stock, and so you'll understand, with those other costs of getting the stock and my time to brief him and train him and check his hygiene and all those things, I actually was wasting time and I was losing money.
Wow.
So you've got to know your cost structure, whether you actually are making money or not.
Yeah.
And the thing is to
because I think that's a very important thing because you can get deceived by the turnover, right? And just seeing a few, but not be aware that you're not actually making money here, right?
Well, I'll make an interesting comment.
Yeah.
Is that you can use, and I'm not going to mention brand names. You can use a certain device to capture card transactions, and through that, you might be told you have access to a certain amount of funding, or there might be other people that offer you funding, and they might look at your bank account and they look at turnover, or they look at your bank balance at the end of the month. So you might have massive turnover and you pay the money into something, or you've just bought a lot of stock because you're going to scale up in a big way.
Yes.
And your bank balance is 5,000 Rand at the end of the month in the business. And then they offer you a 10,000 Rand loan because your bank balance is so low.
Yeah.
But you're sitting with stock and you've got so much stock, you could be transacting at 100,000, 200,000 Rand within a week or two if you go online, for example. So there's such a, I find it quite strange that people are operating in that space, and that might be a topic for you to pick up on the show. Actually, go and look at that small business funding.
Yeah. Richard, I've got to let you go, my brother. I've got to let you go.
But I found that fascinating, and it was actually quite scary.
Much appreciated, okay. Richard in Randburg. Thapelo, your thoughts about what Richard has to say?
I actually absolutely agree with Richard, and I'm thinking sometimes it can happen that actually the side hustle grows and becomes successful, but then the problem becomes with the mismanagement or not being able to manage your cash flow properly. And Richard touched on a lot of things like, the cost structure, and now you have to buy the material, but because of where the proceeds or the revenue you are getting is going, and you're not you're not even investing that money back into the business, then the business falls, and that could now be the beginning of you not being able to sustain it, and really that is cash flow challenge management is quite key, especially.
So we need to look at things like our lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely.
So that we don't break the back of the side hustle to feed the lifestyle.
Yes.
Those are very, very important things. I suppose the side hustle success is whether or not you have the discipline to stay in your tracks, as it were. So in other words, don't use the money of the side hustle for things that are not of the side hustle. Oh, yes. Which is probably the reason why many side hustles lose out.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, separating your personal affairs from your side hustle affairs, as it were, and because you have your day job, still pay all your living expenses out of the income that you're getting from the day job, and then on the other side, investing in it if you can. Don't even pay yourself maybe in the first few months if you can. Invest in it. Whatever money you're making out of your side hustle, try to make sure you nest this baby, look after it, as it and see it grow, because you are actually having an income on the side.
Let's talk to Willem in Johannesburg. Good evening to you, Willem.
Hey, how you doing?
Are you well?
For having this conversation
tonight.
Thank
you so much, man. Much appreciated. Go for it. What's on your mind?
Cool. I just want to comment on why the side hustles are disappearing.
Yes.
To give you a quick rundown, I go into townships, take unemployed people, get them to start a business without funding in 5 weeks, and it makes enough profit to financially sustain themselves. So I can get somebody to 1,000 Rand, 2,000 Rand a week quite quickly. And the one thing that I see is the amount of people not getting into business because of learned helplessness. What I mean by that, they believe that they're helpless. They believe that it is impossible to start a business if you don't have a registered business, a business plan, or funding.
And a website.
And I go, hold my beer. Let me show you. Because the problem out there is the message that's being communicated. We need more funding. We need funding for this and that. That's small business talk. 95% of businesses in the UK, 92% in the US are micro, 10 or less. none of the programs are geared, or none of the messaging is geared towards micro enterprises.
Yeah.
Because let's run lean startup in Africa. It's the most irrelevant, non-contextual, most expensive thing for Africa, and it's not solving our unemployment crisis.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's the learned helplessness that we face, and also the entitlement that I see out there. People think, a guy comes into my class, he takes pictures with a mobile phone, edits it, sells it back to people, the edited picture. Now I'm going to have a Lamborghini in 5 years. I go like, no, you're not. Let's go for a Polo. And they go like, no. And 2 weeks later, it breaks, and he comes back to me and says, Willem, you're right. It's not going to happen. So also watching too much rap videos and going like, I'm going to have money guns. It takes time for a business to get to that level. And that's small business territory, medium-sized business territory.
But not micro business territory, yeah?
No. And what my secret sauce is, I only work on the mindset. It's not my magic. I'm not this wonderful person. The people out there, Africa has a lot of resources. The people are resilient. But our poverty lies in our resourcefulness. We're not being resourceful.
Willem,
our poverty lies.
I'm going to stop you there. Willem in Johannesburg, we were having a similar conversation yesterday with Papa G, Mr. Khaitate, and he spoke about some of these myths that we've believed that take away our resourcefulness. The idea that your help is going to come from some external source, from funding, from the winning of the lotto, from an inheritance, and that resourcefulness is what we have looked away from, and that is where the side hustle could perhaps be the catalyst to reignite that resourcefulness.
Absolutely. In fact, I think Willem just reminded me, a couple of years ago I read a book, Is Your Thinking Keeping You Poor?
Come on.
By I think it's Douglas Kruger.
Yeah.
And he actually puts it so nicely, where you start having this victim mentality, this is somebody's fault, that I'm in this situation, it's the government's fault, it's this fault and everything. And then you start to see that kind of mentality transitioning into an entitlement mentality.
Yes.
And from there, you find that there's no, like you mentioned, learned helplessness. You get to a space where now even yourself, you don't think you can reignite that resourcefulness. It's really, a bit of work to happen with me as an individual.
Well, that's the work you and I are doing right now, right?
Absolutely.
That's the work you and I are doing right now to remind people that you have it in you to be successful.
Absolutely.
And you start where you are.
Absolutely.
Right? In other words, you don't necessarily start with the big website.
Oh, absolutely.
and the big Ferrari. You start where you are.
Yeah.
In
fact, I have
yeah,
I have a couple of benefits, like some things. Maybe you're thinking and you're listening at home, and you want to know more about maybe what other benefits do side hustles really have for me, apart from just being an additional stream of income. One of them could be that it also increases your skill set. In that space where you're in, you learn about selling, you learn about, the dynamics of negotiation, persuasion.
Multi-level marketing is helping that, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
I know of a number of companies that have multi-level marketing networks in South Africa, reputable ones. There are also unreputable ones, but reputable ones.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in those spaces, people are learning about business.
Oh, yes.
They're learning about the issues that you were talking about now, cash flow, overheads, all of those kinds of things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
We need to bring that kind of mentality back, where people begin to look to their own resourcefulness in order to deal with this poverty issue. Yeah?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Let's read some of the messages that have come through on our WhatsApp line, 072-702-1702. This one says, hey, bro, Obs, my side hustle is the remote work gig economy. I service a client who requires 4 hours of my time per day. They pay me $400 per week. Come on, guy. Hey, it's a lot of $400 per week. It's gang share died, man. As gangzi karai. Anyway, it says they pay me $400 per week, and the work can be done on my phone. And I'm seeing on things like Facebook where people are telling people of side hustles that you can pursue using various platforms. Perhaps we need to have that conversation one of these days. Somebody says, "Good evening. I'm from Cape Town. I have a small automotive engineering workshop. What additional hustle can I add? I'm the owner. Thank you," from Judy. Oh, I don't know what you would advise Judy to do. She's got a little workshop, an engineering workshop, but that's not a side hustle. That's what she does.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Maybe that's a different conversation altogether, Judy. Brobs, I like the topic. Thanks that you're touching on what resonates with me. I turned my side to full-time business. I'm also one of the people who's liked by my community. In turn, they support my business so much. One of the uncles weeks ago told me that what I'm doing is a skill that many people lack. Tell your visitors I'm also from Kwat. Oh, your visitor, I'm also from Kwat. Now I'm living in Johannesburg. Yeah,
It's a hobby.
Yeah, it's a hobby here from Kwat. Wonderful stuff. Your final word to our listeners. I love that call by Willem though, eh?
Oh, yes.
That we need to remember that we have our own inbuilt resourcefulness.
Yes.
And we need to start tickling that part.
Absolutely.
To get out of the cycle of poverty. What are your last words?
My message is simple to our listeners, is to say, just start. Start now. Start where you are. Start with what you have. Start with all your insecurities. Start with what you already know. Start moving towards that specific goal. Start and make mistakes. Start small. Start now.
Start.
Uh-huh.
Listen, it's been great talking to you, my brother. I hope you come back again.
It's a pleasure.
Don't just come when Dr. Magwegwe is going to Kenya. We'll send him to Uganda.
No,
to another place. And then you can come and talk to us. Senior Manager for Financial Education at Nedbank, Thapelo Tsiu.